Training styles, by the way. We're talking about training styles. All right. But first, if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry.
I said update.
The collaboration with Sam Stokes dropped this week. There's a shoulder video and a back video. If you haven't seen them, make sure you check them out. Sam's a great dude. We went to North Carolina, filmed with him at an awesome gym.
Awesome gym.
Top Guns Performance and Strength Gym. If you're ever in Rockingham, North Carolina, check that gym out. It is awesome.
It is definitely awesome. It has this old school bodybuilding vibe. You got pictures of Rocky like everywhere, all across the gym. It's epic.
Very motivated.
All right, y'all. You ready to jump into this topic today?
Let's do it.
So yeah, we wanted to cover the topic of functional fitness versus traditional bodybuilding.
Yeah.
One, this is definitely a topic that comes up from time to time, but we recently had a client reach out to us who was interested in more of a functional fitness regimen and wanted to know more about that. So we figured we'd go ahead and cover that topic today. So one, we'll kind of go through what functional fitness is and compare and contrast that to traditional bodybuilding to help you figure out which one might be a better fit for you.
Yeah. What's up, Big T? Thanks for the comment and watching, baby.
All right, so let's jump right into functional fitness.
All right.
How would you describe functional fitness, James?
So I was around when this came out, yo, back in the 90s. If you remember, stabilization training and functional training almost came out around the same time. Functional training basically is anything that's going to help you in real life.
Right.
But to me, that's awful broad because picking up any weight, doing any movement is going to help you in real life.
Yeah, so I would say it's definitely exercises that mimic real life movement. So the things that come to mind when I think functional fitness is like carrying the groceries in or climbing a set of stairs. And if y'all are like me with the groceries, it's like one trip or you didn't lift enough. So there's definitely.
She's serious.
I am serious, y'all. I have like
taking
20 bags on my arms. Can't even open the door.
I take multiple trips. I don't play with that no more.
So yeah, that's what I would call functional fitness. And so if we're talking about what are some key features to functional fitness, I think dynamic movement. So squats, lunges, push-ups, things with kettlebell swings, and then things that have real life relevance. So it's kind of going beyond the aesthetic portion of why someone would lift and more into that practical kind of strength.
Right. I believe the theory is it's supposed to help you in real life because you're training to get stronger and move better in real life situations. So like you're a grandmother and you want to squat down and pick up your grandkid.
Right.
Now you're going to train squats to help you do that.
Yeah, I think there's a huge push into like general wellness and longevity. And so functional fitness is always one of those interesting, fun topics to talk about that constantly gets pushed, I guess, all the way from the 90s.
Yeah.
What would a sample program look like for functional fitness, James?
A lot of compound movements, functional stuff, squats, overhead press, et cetera, et cetera.
Hey, Kylie.
Like I said in the beginning, it's very broad definition. So even a curl would be like you're helping those groceries, picking them up from here and putting them on the counter. That could be considered functional. But in the realm of functional training, it's pretty much compound movements. Think CrossFit.
Right. I mean, there's other elements in there too, like farmer's walks, suitcase carries. If they were to do some type of bicep curl, it might be some kind of like kettlebell curl to press, like think multi-joint, multi-planes of motion that you're moving in, not singular.
Good point.
And so a typical program, similar to other programs, might be 8 to 12 weeks. You would probably work out 3 to 4 times. It still might be some type of push-pull kind of split in there. But like we said, we're doing broad compound lifts, things that really do have a lot of functional carryover.
Yeah, you get a lot of hate on CrossFit, but this CrossFit is 100% functional training.
Yeah, it's a great example.
You're doing the workout of the day no matter what your goal is because the workout of the day is all functional training.
And I will say that even functional fitness, they still progressively overload, right? So it's not like they're not thinking about trying to increase the weights that they're doing those activities as they become easier, yes, they're absolutely making it more challenging for themselves.
It depends on the person and the goal. If
True.
you're the grandmother and all you want to do is pick up your grandkid, you're not going to crush it. If you are a CrossFit competitor, you were going in there and you were crushing it.
Yes, absolutely. Terrence had a good point. He said functional fitness would benefit someone who works physical jobs. Absolutely. If you're doing any type of construction, masonry work, farming even, like, definitely, absolutely.
Great point, Terrence. I had a client I trained online, so I didn't see him in person. And after about a month and a half, he said, man, these deadlifts are making me so much stronger. People at work are looking at me like I'm crazy now. I'm picking up 4 2x4s instead of 2. Et cetera, et cetera. So it definitely will cross over into your real life.
Awesome. So let's talk about traditional bodybuilding now. So if I had to define what that is, I would say traditional bodybuilding is more aimed towards gaining muscle size as well as aesthetics, right? So unlike the other, it has that aesthetic piece.
So, yeah, and max muscle size, not just one muscle, every muscle in your entire body, you are training for max muscle size. If you're a bodybuilder, I don't care if it's your pinky toe. If there's a muscle in there, you're training it for maximum size.
We're doing pinky lifts, y'all.
Right, ridiculous example, but that has no functional anything. But if there's a muscle in there and you're a bodybuilder, you're going to train it.
Yeah, I think with traditional bodybuilding too, there's a lot more focus on isolation. And we're going to compare and contrast the two, so I won't get into talking more on that right now, but definitely there's an isolation aspect to the muscle, like you were just saying.
And the biggest difference is functional training is for functional strength, functional life. Bodybuilding training is for maximum muscle size.
There you go. So some key functions or aspects to traditional bodybuilding is we're training for muscle hypertrophy, which is the muscle size we're talking about. And there's targeted exercises to specific muscle groups, hence a lot of isolation work.
Specificity. You're going to train, if you want biceps, you're going to do bicep exercises.
Absolutely. And that gets back to, it's usually broken down into body part splits. So while some may still do a push-pull split, a lot of people will do individual body parts per session.
Part a day. Yep, absolutely. That's probably the best thing you can do if you're training bodybuilding style.
Right. So I would say most of the time workouts can be anywhere from 4 days to 6 days per week. You're doing exercises like bench press, bicep curls, leg extensions, calf raises, whatever body part you're training, you're working those individual areas. And again, like I said, the goal there is muscle size as well as aesthetics.
Right.
All right. So now let's actually get into a little more specifically kind of comparing and contrasting. So what are some of those like shared aspects, would you say, between functional fitness and traditional bodybuilding?
The compound lifts are definitely going to be shared. I mean, I just said deadlift. That is 100% a functional lift. Every functional exercise should be deadlift. And you pick stuff off all the ground. That happens in life all the time. So deadlifts are definitely there. Squats, same thing. Just about all the big compound movements are going to overlap.
So if I were to dial that back, it's really getting at, strength development is an aspect that's shared between both, right? Both kind of practices enhance gaining overall strength. But they do take different methods to get there, but both type of programs want you to develop strength. And I would say that both programs also engage multiple muscle groups. It's just whether you're doing all in one day or breaking them up into different days. So you have that. What about other areas that may overlap? Like, what do you think about accessory work?
You'll get some on both, but mostly you're going to do accessory work in bodybuilding, bring up weak parts, get an extra squeeze, get an extra burn on a body part you need to bring up. You're going to absolutely isolate your muscles during bodybuilding training, whereas as functional training, you're not necessarily going to isolate a muscle.
Yeah, it's kind of like happenstance. Like, one thing I think of is like farmer's carries, right? That's where you're getting a lot of that forearm, that grip, maybe even a little upper body and core.
Traps, legs, calves.
but it's just like a result of the particular exercise, not that you intended to do that specifically.
That's a good example. So farmer's walk, you're hitting all those muscles right there, right? As a bodybuilder, you wouldn't do that. You say, I want to do forearms and then just do wrist curls. Right. You don't want to train your whole entire body. You want to sit, you're going to hit your legs another day. So you don't want to do that.
Right.
That's a great example.
What do you think about intensity, right? Because I think there's this perception that functional workouts are like more high intensity, whereas bodybuilding is a little lower intensity, but more focused on controlling of the reps.
Anybody thinks bodybuilding trains low intensity ain't doing it right. I can tell you that right now. Again, this is going to depend on your level. If you are the grandmother wanting to pick up your grandkid, you're not going too intense. But if you are a top level CrossFit athlete, you're giving 110%. You're going to the CrossFit Games, you're a beast, dude. I mean, I'm not a big CrossFit fan, but it's common knowledge and common sense. You can look at them and see what they're doing and look at their physiques and say they are top-notch athletes. They are killing it. And they are going to come in and work out intensely.
Absolutely. All right. So let's get more into the debate on hypertrophy and like which one's better, functional training or bodybuilding. So let's talk about some of the mechanisms of hypertrophy, right? Because that's tension, creating that metabolic stress, and then creating that muscle damage or trauma, as James calls it. So when we're talking functional fitness and we're talking tension, like, do you think you have a good ability to create muscle tension doing functional fitness exercises?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think because there's a focus on compound movement, your squats, your deadlifts, that means you're able to create tension across multiple muscle groups. So
100%. That's the whole point.
Whereas traditional bodybuilding, can you create tension? Absolutely. You know, bodybuilders are all about lifting heavy weights with target muscle groups, you know, but it's more of an isolated tension. Right. So because
you said earlier, you're going in there, you're working one body part.
Right.
So the tension you're creating is only in that body part. If I'm going to do chest, I'm going to use my tricep, but I want to eliminate it as much as I can and just seriously focus on chest. And that's it. If you're going into functional training, you're not training one muscle. You're not focusing on one muscle. You're doing functional things, different muscles, compound movements, because in real life, you use multiple muscles. You're not really isolating a muscle in real life, in functional.
What do you think about metabolic stress for functional fitness? Yeah, I mean, I think because it's like a lot of times, a lot of the exercise programs are done as circuits too. And I think because of that, it becomes very high intensity. So I think you're able to generate quite a bit of metabolic stress on your body. But I think you get that more through the endurance aspect and cardiovascular. I mean, you're still getting muscle endurance too, obviously. But I think bodybuilding is a little different because you're getting more of that muscle pump.
You better believe it. So a lot of and this is what bodybuilders that left and tried CrossFit, they're failing at the cardio part.
Right.
So they're losing gain. So
we don't like cardio.
I mean, I'll give you an example. They got to do 20 burpees and then max deadlift. Well, they're upset because they can't lift the deadlift they can normally do because they had to do the stupid 20 burpees first. And I don't say it's stupid. They're not stupid. But if you're a bodybuilder, and this is why bodybuilders leave CrossFit and come back to bodybuilding training, is because those burpees, even though they're functional, they're taken away from your deadlift. When you want max gains, you want to put everything you got into that deadlift.
Yeah, I mean, I think for bodybuilding, the effect of creating that metabolic stress ends up doing, you know, you're getting that crazy pump. Your muscle cells are absolutely swelling, and the result is more of like an aesthetic gain. Whereas, you know, on the other side, functional fitness, the effect is, you know, more endurance, better cardio output, and then over time, better muscle endurance. So different effects actually between the two. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we got a lot of people watching right now. If you have a question, fire away. It doesn't have to be about functional fitness.
Yeah.
Ask us anything. So if you got a question, fire away.
Absolutely. Now, what about muscle damage, the muscle trauma? So with functional fitness, you know, I think that there's still this eccentric focus, like the controlling of the lowering portion of whatever they're doing. And that, you know, leads to growth with the muscle cells. But what do you think about that?
Anything's going to be better than nothing. So again, if you're doing nothing, a functional strength and fitness is great to get you started with. But you're going to, if your max muscle size is your goal, you're going to reach a plateau at some point in your functional training and have to convert over to the bodybuilding style training to continue.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think the difference would be if you're truly progressively overloading your functional fitness in one way or another. If you are, then you're probably still creating those little micro tears or micro traumas that repair themselves and lead to growth. But if you're not actively progressively overloading, then you're probably not getting that aspect. Whereas traditional bodybuilding, you absolutely would, because that's what you're focused on.
Absolutely.
So let's say, functional fitness is where it's at. You want to do it. What are some competitive outlets for people to get more involved?
We already said CrossFit.
Yeah, CrossFit would probably be the number one thing, but I think there's a lot of other things too. There's a lot of mud runs that have popped up, your Tough Mudders, your Spartan races, and they're kind of mixing functional fitness with more of that cardiovascular endurance.
All I heard was cardio, y'all. As soon as you said race, all I heard was cardio.
I mean, they are doing a lot of like jumping over hurdles, a lot of like monkey bar type things, pull-ups. So that can be challenging. I've even seen some of the like Go Ruck challenges where it's not about just rucking and with weight on your back, like they're doing obstacle races with weight on their back.
It's true. And listen, I was in the Army, so I got paid to do all this stuff. So I never, as a civilian, have done a Spartan race, a ruck race, whatever they are. And I probably never will. But again, they're cardio. And I can tell you from doing them in the Army, you're going to fail at cardio way before you're going to fail at strength or any kind of functional fitness, hurdles or nothing. It's the running through those obstacles, the running and trying to beat everybody that gets you. And the cardio is going to get you. It's not your strength.
All right. So we have a question from Big T online.
Big T!
Any benefits from push-pull days?
Of course.
Yeah, so this goes into a little bit about push-pull split. So what do you think, James?
We've gone over this before. If you are a beginner and even maybe an intermediate, push-pull split is fantastic. If you are more advanced, you're going to have to split it up to 5 days because you can't do 2 body parts in one workout. It's just not enough time to create that trauma. So if you're advanced, I would recommend 1 body part a day. Otherwise, you're going to be in the gym for 2 hours. And if you're working out for 2 hours, you're not going hard enough.
Right.
So push-pull split is great for beginners, maybe a little bit of intermediate, but once you're advanced, you have to give your body part more time in the gym to create that trauma.
Absolutely. All right, going back to some other competitive outlets for functional fitness style training, I would say, strongman competitions could loosely be related to that. But that's a stretch. But that's more so the lifting and the carrying aspect of strongman.
It is, but strongman training is definitely different than functional training.
I would agree. And then potentially Highland Games.
Hey!
James Scottish, so he loves his Highland Games, but
she's right. It's a lot of throwing, mostly throwing.
Stone put.
Games. Yep. Yeah. You're throwing stone. You're throwing hay. You're throwing a telephone pole.
You're throwing weight for height. So there's definitely some functional aspects to that. So yeah, what about traditional bodybuilding?
Competitive athlete?
Yeah.
Competing, obviously. That's the pinnacle of bodybuilding. You're not a bodybuilder until you hit that stage. Matter of fact, Big T, you're not a bodybuilder until you hit that stage, baby. Terrence competed a couple years ago. For anybody watching doesn't know who Big T is. I think he won, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, there's definitely the NPC, that's National Physique Committee. They're probably the biggest league out there that there is.
They're probably the best.
One of the best for sure. And then there's the professional league as part of that, the International Federation of Bodybuilding, IFBB. Very competitive league.
That's the cream of the crop. That's the top. That's the major leagues. That's the NFL. That's the NHL. It doesn't get any bigger or better than the IFBB.
Absolutely. And then there's some of the natural leagues, Organization of Competitive Bodybuilding, OCB. There's USBF. So lots of different ways. And there's lots of different leagues. So if you're just getting into it, for sure, it's definitely a way to go.
And we're talking about the pinnacle of these two sports here. You're
Right.
not even a competitor until you reach the pinnacle of these sports, man.
All right. So, James, let's actually address the elephant in the room with functional fitness versus bodybuilding.
Oh, right.
So, at the end of the day, does functional fitness truly build muscle?
It can, absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree.
Is it going to build the same amount of muscle as bodybuilding? No way.
So here's how I see this. Functional fitness, the primary focus is not building muscle, but it's a side effect.
Correct.
Of functional fitness.
Well said.
Yeah.
Functional fitness, you want to get stronger in your
Right.
functional daily life. And as a side effect of that, you're going to get bigger muscles. Well said.
Yep. And that's because it is creating that tension throughout the muscles. It's creating that metabolic stress.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's still creating muscle damage.
Yeah. Stronger muscle is a bigger muscle. I mean, I don't know how to.
Right.
Any way you cut it, a stronger muscle is a bigger muscle. So if you're getting stronger, even with the functional training, you're going to get bigger muscles.
All right. Another question for you.
Oh, my goodness. She's killing me with these questions.
Can you achieve a shredded physique without traditional bodybuilding?
Absolutely. Diet, genetics will get you shredded. I mean, you're not necessarily going to be huge, but you can be shredded all day long.
Who wants to be shredded and not huge? Come on, James.
I know a whole bunch of
I'm just kidding.
young men that want to be shredded and not huge.
Yeah. James is absolutely right. Like with the focus on diet, having a caloric deficit, and getting adequate protein intake, you can absolutely do functional fitness type training and still have that lean, shredded appearance.
Again, look at the CrossFit Games. There's some stellar physiques up there at the top, man. Believe me, these and mostly females is who I'm referring to, actually, because these girls are beasts, man. They're ripped. They got muscles. They can move. They can run. They can jump. They're doing it.
Yeah. The thing I'll caveat is that genetics, consistency, and individual variations can play a significant role in that.
Absolutely.
And so even though you can get that shredded physique with functional fitness, when it comes to true aesthetics, having balance and symmetry, that's where it's either genetics or you have to do traditional bodybuilding to have that isolation effect on that specific muscle group that may be lagging.
Well said. You got to bring up your weak body parts in bodybuilding.
Right.
And you can get shredded in either training way. It's going to be diet that does it. It's nothing more than a caloric deficit, like Camille said. You can not even work out. If you're at a caloric deficit, you're going to get shredded at some point. Right. You're going to be skinny, but skinny and shredded, you know.
Big T says he's lost 20 pounds on a 3-month cut. That is fantastic, Terrence.
Good job. Keep it up, bro.
Absolutely. What do you think, Big T, made you so successful with that 3-month cut there? Type that out to us. You know, a lot of people today, James, are actually doing more of a hybrid approach between functional fitness and traditional bodybuilding. Even ourselves, I mean, we definitely focus on compounds. We started incorporating some of those like farmer walk type exercises in. In fact, we had farmers walks as one of our core exercises recently.
There's a lot of overlap. Like, you know, squats and deadlifts are probably the main exercise for functional, and they should be your main exercises for bodybuilding. They're going to create the most trauma and the most muscles, and that's what you want in bodybuilding, and they are the most functional. That's what you want in functional training. So there's definitely going to be overlap. I mean,
But yeah, we get this question a lot. It's usually related to CrossFit. You know, CrossFit has more of that social culture associated with it. Like everyone belongs, you know, you have your buddies competing against you.
There's a lot of jokes for CrossFit guys, you know, I'm shading CrossFit, but there's nothing wrong with CrossFit.
There's no need to shade CrossFit.
And if that is all you're doing, believe me, it is better than nothing. Keep doing it.
Well, and I always say too, if you're a beginner or maybe even intermediate, like, oh, absolutely, you're going to gain some muscle. It's just to that point where you get to be a more advanced lifter. If you're focusing more on the cardiovascular side than the muscle side, that's where maybe you need to switch over to more traditional bodybuilding. But if you're just out the gate learning how to do CrossFit or any type of activity like that, you're definitely going to get bigger in size.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of CrossFitters go wrong is they get, you know, they start in CrossFit, make some gains, build a pretty decent physique, but then they plateau and they don't know anything but CrossFit.
Right.
So they just keep doing CrossFit and keep not making gains, keep not
Right.
making gains, stay at the plateau. They might get stronger, but they're not getting any bigger. And they just stay at that plateau and they don't have any clue, any other training. So they just stay there because of ignorance.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
So Big T says what made him so successful in his 3-month cut to lose 20 pounds was changes to his diet, eating more leaner meats, doing cardio for 30 minutes, and doing more carbs but fewer fats and more recovery time.
Nice.
Yeah.
See, that's a little different there. He upped his carbs and lowered his fats. Good stuff, T.
Good stuff. It's all balance. All right. Any final thoughts on functional fitness versus traditional bodybuilding?
I said it earlier, functional fitness definitely has, I mean, we're bodybuilders, so we're biased. But functional definitely has its place. And if that's all you're doing, get off the couch and do it. Move. Get yourself moving. If that's your thing, then go do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't have to take it to the extreme level of the CrossFit Games. You could just go do CrossFit. And if you're lonely, CrossFit is where you want to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're going to get hugged. They're going to tell you your name. They're going to learn your name. Everybody in there is going to know your name day one.
That's right.
They're going to run out and give you a hug. So if you need that social aspect, go ahead and do CrossFit as well. And we're not knocking CrossFit. Just realize if you want max muscle size, you're going to have to train a different way.
Yeah, I mean, I encourage everyone watching to experiment from time to time and find your sweet spot, the balance between functional fitness and traditional bodybuilding. And in fact, I invite anyone listening to share their own personal experiences and thoughts on functional fitness versus traditional bodybuilding. I'd love to hear from you guys. Absolutely.
So, like I said, it came out in the 90s and it was huge. Everybody was doing it. So was stability training. Both of them have kind of fizzled out, except for the CrossFit.
Right.
The CrossFit has stuck around because anybody now that walks into the gym and says, I want functional training, they point you over to the CrossFit section. There's where you want to be. Hey, go over there. And almost every gym has a CrossFit section in it now, by the way. So if you walk into the gym and tell your trainer, I want functional training, they're going to point you over to CrossFit. If you say, I want to be a bodybuilder, max muscle size, they're going to train you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I thank everyone for tuning in today.
Yes.
Remember, we're here for you. So if there's any topics or things you'd like to know more about, just drop us a comment and we'll get back to you or film some content related to that for you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kylie and Big T, for the comments. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Tune in every Sunday, 12 Eastern. All right. Bye, everyone. See you next week.